In our beautiful LGBTQ plus community, we often come together when the threat comes from the outside. We also get together to hang out and have fun. But what I wondered is, do we ever really still take the time to sit down and have a conversation about things that truly matter? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to already the third episode of this very special Pride project we don't talk about. And this week I have a guest that is very near and dear to me. Would you please introduce yourself to the people?
Hi there, my name is Femke. I'm from the Netherlands, of course, and I know Lolo a very long time.
Now, this project, as I mentioned, is called We Don't Talk About because there are so many subjects in our wonderful community that don't get talked about enough.
Yes.
And what is it that you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about labeling and maybe especially self-labeling.
I think that's a very, very interesting subject because
Yes.
nowadays, in the conversations I've had in the weeks past, a lot of things came forward about terminology and that we have so much terminology now, but I think that makes it even more important
Yes.
to be able not to only know or self-identify. It makes it easier to explain to the rest of the world as well, I guess.
Yes, exactly, but I've been in the scene for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And you can see the difference in labeling then and now.
Yes.
And there's way more labels now.
Oh, absolutely. And to be perfectly honest, even I can't always keep up with it. I try my very, very best, and especially I try to not make any mistakes with people who are dear to me, or also people who I don't know. I want to be respectful towards everyone, but it isn't always easy with terminology changing so fast.
Yes.
I think.
And because the terminology changes so fast, it's almost impossible to know it all.
Yes, and there are also people who feel the same about themselves in a certain way, but call it a different name because they are from a different era.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's what it is.
But yeah, so talking about that, how do you label yourself?
I label myself as femme, which is also my name, but as femme. And maybe slight sub-labels in there. But I label myself as she, her, a woman, and I'm pansexual.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does so there are two questions I want to ask about being pansexual, and that is, how would the dictionary describe that? And then apart from that, what does it mean to you? Because the definition of a word doesn't always encompass everything.
To tell you the truth, I wouldn't know how the dictionary would explain pansexual, because it's a very uncommon label. But I can tell you what it means for me.
Okay. And I will interject for a little bit because I have a vague idea of what the dictionary more or less says about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you tell me, I can tell you what the differences are with the dictionary and me.
Yeah, oh, that's a good way, indeed. Yeah. I think according to the dictionary, it says that someone who is pansexual is attracted to a person of any gender, regardless of that gender.
Yes.
I know that in a dictionary, usually the description stops there.
Yes, and
for me, I also know that for you it means a lot more.
For me, it means a lot more. For me, it's more I fall in love with a personality or quality someone has, which is my first step is not looking at someone. Are you a man? Are you a woman? Are you binary? Non-binary. Non-binary. See, that's why I have a problem with labels. And that's something I don't look at. It's something I have to figure out later on. For me, it's possible to only speak with someone through channels like TikTok or so, and never ever seen them, but still can't fall in love.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's also an admirable quality because I think a lot of people um, need that visual.
Yes, and I don't need the visual. No. And sometimes I get disappointed by the visual. I must be honest about that because, well, the eyes want something as well, and there's
Of course,
certain
and there
types.
is such a thing as physical attraction.
Yes, but physical attraction is not my main focus. My main
Yeah, I
focus
get
is
that.
the inside of a person. And sometimes I find out someone isn't a man but a woman, or in between, or
Or both, or neither.
both, yeah, or neither.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because we put that in the power of non-binary, which has so many sub-identities now, which I applaud. But that's one of the things that is hard for me to keep track on my way of dealing with that on personal experience. So when I meet someone who says, "Hey, I identify as such and such, and these are my pronouns," then that's that, and I'll
Yes.
try my best to do it correct. Even if sometimes I have to switch a little bit, and I have to think a little harder.
To be true, I forgot to ask how someone identifies himself, and I pick it up out of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah, that usually works as well. And I mean, even if you are mistaken in that, or if you say it in the wrong way at some point, when someone corrects you, it's easy enough to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
You
know, I'm like that.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Correct yourself, and
Yeah.
then that's that. Because
But
I think a lot of people, when they accidentally make a mistake, they either
freeze.
yeah, they freeze, and they either then respond in an angry way because it's something new for them and they don't understand, and they don't really know what to do with it, and they don't want to have the feeling that they did something wrong. Or on the other extremity of it, it's making it a really, really, really big deal. Like, I am so sorry, and I didn't mean to hurt you.
You know, I would never do that.
No, I know.
And
but
it's maybe harsh to say, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care how someone identifies. I identify myself as a good person.
Yeah. Yeah, but that also means that your response is what I would call civil.
Yeah.
And what I would consider normal.
Oh no,
I know not everybody.
You're giving me a label here.
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah, well, it sounds harsh when you say someone, well, like, I don't care how you identify yourself. But it has to do with the pansexuality as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't look at the outside layer.
But I mean, not caring about how someone identifies does not mean that you don't care about how that person wants to be treated.
No, absolutely not.
For instance, what pronouns they use.
Yes. Can I talk about our personal?
Of course.
Yeah. When you started to transition, you know, it was the it was a transition for me as well.
Yeah. It's what a lot of people tend to forget. It is
Yes.
a transition for the people around you too.
And of course, the first few times we saw each other, I mispronounced you. And it bothered me because you are my friend. But not because you changed gender.
No, because it was important to you what it did to me.
Yes.
But you actively approached me about that. And you're like, so how does it make you feel when this happened? And is there something I can do to make that easier? And we had a real honest conversation about that without any overwhelming emotions or anything. It was just plain what it was.
Without judgment.
Yes. I think mostly that, without judgment.
Yes.
And that was really important and very eye-opening to me.
It was.
It was because a lot of people, especially when it's about people who are close to them, um, go not only in the factual part of the transition, but for some people it's very emotional as well.
Mhm.
Especially, I transitioned later in life. I was 32 when I started my transition. For my parents, for instance, they had to let go of this idea that they had a daughter.
Yeah.
And I can completely understand why that is an emotional journey too.
Yes, I can understand that as well. But I was so proud of you, and I saw the birth of meneer Merel, and yeah, I was already fond of you, but we became better friends.
Yeah, we got so much closer after my transition.
Yes,
actually.
every time I saw you coming home to yourself. Even more than the time before that.
I think that also has to do with a gift that you have, and you can perceive how real a person is,
Yes.
and how authentic a person is, and I came so much more into myself.
Yeah, and also that has to do with the pansexuality.
Yeah.
Because when you were before your transition, the outside was not the same as the inside, and I saw the inside not reflecting on the outside, and that made it fake.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize back then. It took me a really, really long time to get there, which is actually kind of weird because I think this is also the perfect conversation to pick up on how the journey went for me,
Mm-hmm.
and how I came to the point as that I identify as I do now, as a gay trans man.
You were fluent for a while.
Yes, as well, but actually that journey started
way before that.
Because I was 18 years old before we met.
Mm-hmm.
When
just a few years before.
Yeah. When the idea first occurred to me that I might not be female, and that was exactly how it felt. I think I am not fully female. That's how that registered with me. But words like non-binary weren't a thing back then. We're talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The word we did have was androgynous, but that was more projected towards the outside and not towards how you feel on the inside. And there was barely any representation of transgender men.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a lot of trans women who have been part of the community since my early teens. So, like, the whole transgender subject wasn't new to me, but in my head, transgender was linked to trans women.
Really?
Yes.
I would think the other way around, because the first times I heard about trans, I worked at a grocery store, and there was a couple, and he became her and she became him. Okay. You know them as well. Nice. And that was the first time I heard about transitions. And later on in life, I worked at anthroposophic in our anthroposophic house, and they told me a story which explained it all to me. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, they say anthroposophic is are people that believe in God, but also in the universe and more not seeable things. And they said that before anti-conception, baby spirits were sitting on the steps of heaven picking out their parents and their future lives.
Wow.
And with anti-conception in the 70s, the door closed. And now they have another spot they have to go through if they have a chance. And then sometimes the gods make a mistake.
Wow, that's a very interesting take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
like
how
that.
I look at it. Sometimes the gods make a mistake.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, I only knew trans women, and I did go to a transgender meetup. But everyone's story there was so straightforward. Everyone there was transitioned from male to female, and they were all very feminine women.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I didn't quite know what I felt yet, but I did know that I wasn't like this macho masculine man.
Mm-hmm.
And that really contradicted all their stories. And I asked some questions and I went into conversation. And I was 18 years old and I was pretty insecure about a lot of things, not only this. And a lot of times back then, I took it at face value when someone said something to me. So one of the people there said, well, after what you've been telling tonight, I don't think you're trans. I took that at face value, took a nosedive back into the closet, and it took me...
That's really too bad.
Yeah. Well, it took me, I think, about 7 or 8 years before it first came up again, when I was in a loving relationship and I felt safe to express
and
myself.
I remember, the first things I remember about that time is that you were so unhappy.
Yes.
So unhappy, and you could feel it. And like I said before, you were not you.
Yeah, there were parts of my life I was happy about,
Mm-hmm.
but I was never fully happy. And I think the complete realization about that came after I started transitioning, and I really came into my own and found true happiness.
Yes, you did, and you make me so proud.
I mean, and it makes me not only just the being happy, but it also makes me so happy that I can sit here now and share my honest story and hopefully let someone else know that there are so many ways of being yourself.
Yes.
And that being yourself is the most important thing. I want to give a very, very big thanks to Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte, who not only hosts us but sponsors this entire project. Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte in Rotterdam is one of the oldest drag bars in the Netherlands and definitely worth a visit for everyone. Everyone is welcome here, no matter your age, your gender, your sexuality. And as Bonaparte has proven, everyone gets along when they have a nice drink in their hands. Bonaparte is a night bar and there are regular drag shows as well. All the info, address, opening hours, etc., their socials you can find in the description below. And once again, a very big thank you to Gay and Drag Bar Bonaparte. Now, let's get on with our conversation.
If I pick a thing about your story, someone else said you are not trans, so labeled you wrong.
Yes.
And
Here we go again.
there we go again, it's the labeling.
Yeah,
There's no one that can label you but you.
that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true.
But sad enough, they're tossing labels around like they're free tickets.
Yeah. And usually there's no malice behind it, and sometimes actually it can be helpful.
Yes, sometimes. But sometimes the label you get is not the label
That fits.
that fits or you would ever give yourself.
Yeah.
In my case, well, like I said, I've been in the community almost 30 years, 28 to be exact. And just the last 5 years, I get labeled as cis. As a cis woman. And I know cis is a really, really, really old label from
Yes and no.
from the Romans, but it's faded away. And I feel like the last 5 years or so, it pops up again.
Yeah. I personally, I think there is nothing wrong with the term, but it's being used in a way to put people opposite of each other so
Yes.
much that it has an extra meaning to it.
And that's it's taking me off.
Yeah, I
Because-
can understand.
Because when we started this conversation, I told you I present myself as a woman. And all of a sudden, I'm not just a woman. I'm a cis woman.
Yeah.
And that's not a label I picked out myself.
And yet, you know what's interesting? Because we've talked about this before off camera
Mhm.
a lot.
Yes.
And it took me some time to realize like what the thing is where I was like, well, if you look at it scientifically, that's what it is, so what's the big deal? But the big deal is what it means to you.
Yes.
And that is so important. But it also inspired me to really look into it and how this works, because the prefix cis, yes, is very old and comes from Latin, and I have this printed out actually. It means on this side of.
Yes.
And
by calling me cis, you place me outside of a community I've been in for almost 30 years. It's like someone saying you can't play along, you're cis.
Well, but here's the thing though. It's just the prefix that existed this long.
Yes.
As the word cisgender, which is what we're actually referring to,
Mm-hmm.
Has only been in a dictionary for 9 years.
Yes.
And they started using it around 30 years ago, a little bit.
Yeah, I have to mention that when I came into the community, it was mostly transvestites.
Mm. Yeah. Which is also one of those words that is
disappeared.
well, it didn't quite disappear, but it's a word that a lot of people take offense to when you call them that. What those people tend to forget is that there are also still a lot of people who label themselves as such.
Yes.
It is not an offensive word. It is, however, can be offensive to you, and that's a difference.
I found myself in a discussion with someone with a non-binary person, and I told that someone I knew was a transvestite, and they corrected me in a really harsh way, called me transphobe.
Wow.
And I was really offended by that.
Yeah, I can understand.
Because if someone isn't a transphobe, it's me.
Yeah.
And that's why labels can be a present sometimes. Because you can be a drag queen, but there's more than being a drag queen.
Yeah.
There are transvestites. Some of my friends only do it to provoke, because they think it's funny when they sit in the subway and people behind them say, "Oh, that's a really pretty lady." You say, "Yes, I am."
Yeah, I mean that's there. And there's also cross-dressing.
Cross-dressing as well.
And cross-dressing is never seen as an offensive word, but cross-dresser can be seen as offensive by some people. Although I also know plenty of people who label themselves as cross-dresser.
Yes.
And it's important to make that distinction. Like not that a label doesn't suit you or work for you or is offensive to you doesn't mean that that label can suit someone else.
Exactly, because other women might find it perfectly fine to be called a cis woman,
Yeah,
but I don't like it.
yeah. I get
And
I
maybe
get where you're coming from, because it also has that, it has
you can
become
play
this
along
negative
stigma.
connotation thing there. What is interesting to me is that I get it the other way around, because I specifically identify as a trans man.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people ask me, but like, you're done with your transition, right? Why not just call yourself a man? But for
No.
me, my transition is such
Your transition is a travel.
that, not only that, but it's part of who I am.
Yes.
For me, in my core, as well as the 30-something years that I presented female and basically lived as a woman, are such an intricate part
Some
of
of your
my
golf parts.
Hmm?
Some of your golf parts.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
No, it's all.
Yeah.
It all made me into who I am, and I value all of that so much.
Yeah, but it's something to be proud of. So why leave the trans part away?
Yeah, and I mean, of course, if you don't have to use that prefix,
Mm-hmm.
but don't tell me that I can't use it.
No.
Because for me, it's such an integral part
And
of who I am, and of how I choose to live my life as well.
Yeah, well, you know me, you know who I am, and I'm most possibly the most female woman you can ever find. So I don't need to be extra labeled.
Yeah, that's also an interesting take on it.
Yeah. And it's all of a sudden, and I also already had a label that is not well known. Pansexuality is not well known. And you get labeled as a pansexual as well. And it bothered me.
I understand, and you know it took me quite some time to get to that point where I understood more. It's also because the discussions I had online with people who don't want to be labeled cis usually came from trans folks.
Yeah, but I'm not a trans woman.
I know.
You know.
I know, but that's for me. My reasoning was backwards.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, for me, the prefix cis, or the being called cisgender, was a thing that was disliked by transphobes and by TERFs mostly.
No.
But coming from that reasoning, knowing you as a very accepting and loving and open person, it came as a blow. Like, I don't want to be called it. And I was like, huh?
Why not?
And then we had several conversations, and I was like, well, duh.
Yeah. Because you just have to look at me and know I'm a woman.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be subtitled.
Yeah, I think it can be useful in certain conversations, not per se labeling specific people, but to give a distinction in general.
Yes, that perhaps. As long as it's not my general direction.
Because I also get that, but why I think it's important to keep using the term is because transgender has that set prefix. It is seen as the different thing, the otherly thing.
Yes.
But there is a set prefix for people who agree with the sex they were assigned at birth as well. That doesn't mean you have to use it, but it is there, just as you don't have to use the prefix trans.
If we were in a meeting and I'm going to meet like 30 new people, and you're introducing them me to them, and you say once cis, that's okay. As long as you don't label me that all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's context.
Yes.
But that was where I was coming from as well, is that there's a really big group of people, and not only people who are running around with pitchforks and torches, but also people who are in general pretty much understanding, do have the conviction that when you're trans, you have to disclose that always and everywhere.
Yeah.
Which basically means that you get labeled and you get that prefix put in front of you whether you want it or not. And I think that's also why I, in the past, but not still now, a lot of trans and non-binary folk feel that it's correct to return the favor.
Yeah, well, perhaps.
But that's a bit vindictive.
But that's a bit petty too.
Yeah.
But it's also with me. I belonged into the rainbow community for so long,
Yeah.
and calling me cis places me out of that.
And I think especially because a lot of people don't realize
That
you
I
are
am
part of the community.
Yes, that I'm part of the community because, well, I spread my love about the community.
Yeah.
But yeah, pansexuality is not the first thing people think about.
No.
Because you're straight, or you're gay, or you're bi, and that's it. But for me, pansexuality is a very different label, which is not well known.
Yeah. And which for you expands outside of the whole gender thing.
Yes, it does.
Whereas bisexuality, for instance, is very gendered.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily have to mean nowadays men and women. It's not per se non-binary exclusive or trans exclusive. What a lot of people think, and they think, the term pan became popular when trans people became more visible.
Oh no, I know
That's
know
not it.
that I was actually all my life. I didn't have the name for it a long time, but I knew all my life that gender didn't matter to me.
And yeah, but that's also a thing where self-labeling is important, because there are people who would label themselves or identify themselves as bisexual, and when they explain that they can be attracted to any gender, they often hear from other people like, "Oh, so you're pan."
Yes, not that often,
But that's also an interesting thing. Like, why should you disregard how someone labels themselves because you have another definition in your mind?
True, but pan works really differently. But when my love fades, the veil can lift as well.
Yeah.
Because I fell in love with the inside of someone, and the inside of someone can be so beautiful for me.
That it reflects on the outside.
That it reflects on the outside.
Yeah. Like it literally shines through.
Yes. And when that love dies, I can suddenly see, to say it in a mean way, that guy's really ugly.
You're ugly.
Yeah. But I never noticed before.
I was so transported back to the 90s for a minute.
Yeah.
Do you remember that song? UGLY.
But it may sound that odd, but the moment my love fades, I suddenly see, this guy is cross-eyed. I never saw that before.
That's really bad skin.
Yeah. Or walks like he has Buddhist pants, or and I would never have noticed that with the veil of love.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know how that works for you, but for a lot of people, it also means that age difference isn't as big as a deal as
No.
it is for most people.
No, it isn't. I had a boyfriend that was 15 years younger than me for 3 years. And it just became difficult at the end when the veil lifted.
Yeah.
Then I saw how immature he actually was.
Yeah. Yeah, then it does come into play, but that's literally, yeah. Wow.
It might be odd, but that's how it works for me.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to maybe name some other by now known but not widely known labels that also have a lot of misconceptions going around them, or some prejudice.
Yes, and just by calling me a cis woman, by placing me out of the rainbow community, doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Yes.
And like I said, especially when you're already not as visible as.
Yes.
Because what people see when you are in a relationship with a man is
normal.
Straight.
Yes. But I'm not straight.
And but that's the same thing when, like,
I'm not gay either. I'm
yeah, but also when for instance, a bisexual person has what we would call heteronormative relationship,
mm-hmm.
a lot of people would instantly say, "Oh, so you're straight now."
No.
Or the other way around, when they're in a gay relationship, in a same-sex relationship. "Oh, so you're gay now." No, if that person is bisexual, they are still bisexual. Yeah. If you are pan, you are still pan. You happen to be in a certain type of relationship.
I had a bi boyfriend for a long time. And one of our favorite things to do was sitting in a park on a bench and say, "Oh, that's a really beautiful man. Oh, but that's really a beautiful woman. Look what comes out of her." And talk to each other about that.
That's amazing.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was the only amazing thing about that relationship.
Oh, well.
But, yeah, that's how it works for me.
Yeah.
And when you tell people, "Yeah, but I'm pansexual," first reaction you get is, "What's that?"
Yep.
Because I like being gay or hetero. That's far more known.
Absolutely. Now, and here's the thing as well. There are so many more defined sexualities nowadays that are considered not part of our community. But I do think for a lot of them, some you could place outside of the community because it is generally, or it's applicable to both gay and straight people, or anyone. But then it's their choice.
Yeah, and
like for instance, demisexuality.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't know what that means. Demisexual means that you are, you first have to connect to someone on an emotional level before you can actually develop physical attraction to a person. Mm-hmm. That is something that can apply to anyone, basically.
Yes.
But even if you are someone who usually has heteronormative relationships, but you feel because of your demisexuality that you are a part of our community, who are we to say no?
Exactly that. And now I know I'm a sucker for non-binary. Yeah. Which fits into pansexuality really, really well.
Yeah.
And for me, there's the in between is very interesting for me. But it doesn't matter if I find that out later on.
No.
Because I would already fall in love with someone's personality.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And of course, a very important one that also rarely gets talked about is asexuality,
Yes.
which I think is there's so many prejudice around that, and there's so many misconceptions.
Well, I think my son might be asexual, and I know a few, and it's so far away from love that sexuality. That, and the misconception is that people always will say, "Well, you're not capable of love," which is absolutely not true.
Oh no, that's actually a completely different lane,
But
which because there are people who are not capable of romantic interest, but
It's
you
a
call those
stigma.
people aromantic.
yes, and then we're not talking about candles and
No.
fancy dinners, but there are different reasons for asexuality. But sometimes someone just is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of, like with most things, not everything is black and white. There's this whole area that we call gray A's,
Yeah.
specifically. And for instance, demisexual is also something that can fall under gray A's. I know someone who, for instance, always thought she was asexual until she met her current person, which she connected with, fell in love with completely all the way, and it's bonkers crazy butterflies everywhere. And she was like, I never knew I could experience this.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that was when she realized, okay, so I'm not ace, I'm demi. But demi falls under gray ace.
Yes.
In a certain way. And there are several others. I don't know every one from the top of my head, but there are so many combinations.
That as well. But what I would like to say about labeling is let person label themselves.
Yes.
And don't place labels on others before you had a good communication about it.
Absolutely. What you can always do is if someone is searching, like offer information
about labels without labeling someone.
Yes.
Because a label,
I think the closest you can get is I think you might be, which is already walking on thin ice.
Yes.
But you can say, well, you might find this interesting, and there's such a thing as such and such exists.
Yeah, maybe you could read into.
Yeah. I think that works a lot better. And what I do think there is a really positive thing about having more terminology and more labels, which is it's so much easier to self-identify as well.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
I mean, we've talked about the importance of self-identification, but if you lack the words and the knowledge, it's really hard for some people to, like you always knew how you felt about people.
Yes.
You just didn't have a term that encompassed it all. Exactly. But there are also a lot of people who, because they don't have the right words, they need words to put a frame around it and to validate their feelings.
A long time I didn't know the word POM. Yeah. And that's one of the things the internet taught me.
Yeah.
And that's a discussion we had before, of course, about transsexuality. That there were so many people that felt not in the right body that they just felt, well, I must be crazy.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing known about transgender.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which also goes back to the Romans.
Yes.
But faded.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I had a really interesting conversation here about queerness in historical literature.
Nice.
And actually, transgender literature goes way further back than gay literature.
Yeah, I bet you have
so
talked about Caligula.
Well, we didn't really go there, but it was really, really interesting. And I think in the era where we live now, there is on the one hand so much information, but it's really hard to sift through and find the right information.
Yeah, and you have to, well, with the labels as well, like being queer, you vibe that out.
Yeah.
With the way you talk, mostly, with the way some use their hands, and some don't, like, you
Yeah.
know. And with, for example, pansexuality or asexuality, you can't see that on the outside.
Yeah.
And then you get labeled sick.
Yeah, and I think I often use queer as an umbrella term because there are absolutely some people who are pan and super queer.
Yes.
There are also a lot of people who are gay and not queer at all, for instance. And there's so many sub levels and sub genres, and sometimes it's really hard to use to find the right term to describe our community.
Mm-hmm.
Some use the rainbow community or even the pink community.
That's because I always forget all the letters. I'll be honest about that.
Yeah. If ever you use an abbreviation with a letter combination, just put a plus behind it to cover your ass, because no one wants to exclude people on purpose. Well, at least people who have good intentions will never purposefully exclude someone. But the acronyms change so much and the abbreviations change so much and develop so quickly that it is sometimes hard to keep track. But as long as you add that plus, you're relatively safe, as well as I sometimes jokingly just say the alphabet soup.
Yeah. For me, it's actually the rainbow family, and it's not obvious. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
But I truly am.
I know, I'm proud.
Yes. So never, ever call me transphobe again. Because...
I remember how hurt you were. You texted me immediately after that happened. Like, okay, and you questioned yourself. And that's what I find admirable, because you knew I didn't do anything wrong. And you knew, you were convinced about that. But you did have the, how do you call that?
Insecurity?
Well, it's that too, but also the
awareness.
Yes, that's a better word. I think the awareness to know that as people we don't know everything, and that you can sometimes, without knowing, make a mistake.
Yes,
exactly. And do something wrong. And it happened. This was the biggest example, but it happened a few other times that you texted me like, so this person said this to me. Am I in the wrong here? Because I'm not sure. And I think that's so admirable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people lack the confidence to question themselves.
Yeah. But you know that at some points I can be really, it's a nice, no fun attendant, I can be really straight. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you want to discuss it. We had discussions about being misgendered in a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can be really black and white about that. You know that as well. Which is hard. But that's the nurse in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
a difference though, if there is a very clear option on how to deal with that. There's this example that I went to a lung doctor. I think that was the conversation we had as well.
Yeah,
I went to a lung doctor, and that was after like my gender marker was legally changed and everything. There are certain things that develop physically different for people who are assigned male or female at birth.
Yes.
So it was absolutely relevant in that case. I did a lung capacity test, and because I didn't transition in my youth, my lungs developed as someone with a female body.
Yeah.
So it was relevant for them to know. I always disclose this whether or not it's relevant, just to be sure. But what they did is, instead of putting a remark somewhere that this person is trans,
you, and that was
they not only misgendered me, they changed my gender in their system.
and that's not
So
okay.
I went to another part of the hospital to get like X-rays taken or something. I was called in, being misgendered as Mrs. I stood up because I knew he was talking about me, because I have a not very common last name. And the man looked at me and he saw this bearded, stocky, burly guy standing there, and he was completely out of his mind, confused by it. And I had to go back to the lung doctor, and he said, "Well, this and this happened." I said, "This is a problem. This is not right." And they were like, "Yeah, but they explained why they did it." But they tried to say, "Well, we had no choice," and that's where I said, "Okay, now I have no choice," and I made a formal complaint to the hospital, and they changed the policy.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
I know. I remember that one of the things we were talking about was osteoporosis.
Yeah.
Which is something that's more common with females than males.
Yes.
That was one of the things we talked about. Do you remember?
Not really.
Yes, we talked about osteoporosis. Because women, by birth, women, have a higher risk. So that's something that will, even as a male, always haunt you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To get everything changed in the system, so they have your right name and your right gender marker and stuff like that.
To tell you the truth, that's not only with transitioning.
Also, when you
I have had a name change.
Yeah. Indeed.
And like some diplomas of mine are in my dead name. I have a dead name as well.
Yeah. And what people don't realize is that when you have a dead name, documentation with that name on it is no longer legally valid.
No. So I have a letter from the Queen, which states that that's me.
Yeah, this is.
When we still had a queen, it was a long time ago.
But that's also a thing, and that is very, very much a labeling thing. And a big issue in our community. The moment you have a double last name, people consider or assume, and instances and government and everything, that you're a woman.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like same-sex marriage has been open. Marriage has been open for so many years by now. It's been, I think
20
it was
years.
Longer.
30 years, perhaps.
No, like 20-something years.
Yeah.
It was around the year 2000 that marriage in the Netherlands got open. We were the first.
Of course.
Yeah, well, that was back when we were very progressive and still very high in the top of places to be as a queer person. We're no longer there.
No,
unfortunately. But over here, like marriage has been open for so long, and it's still the first assumption when someone has a double last name that they are female. And that goes as far as, and this is something that I really want to.
My dead name is a double name.
Yeah, this is something that I really want to share, because a friend of mine who has terminal prostate cancer and is married to his husband asked for a parking card. And regardless of all other things that went wrong with it, because government and systems and etc., when he finally got the letter that he could come pick up his parking card, it was addressed to Mrs.
Honestly, that's...
And not only is it in general a mistake, but someone with prostate cancer.
Yeah, that's
Like it is technically possible as a woman to have a prostate if you're trans, but this is also an older person.
you know I did a study
them-
for assigning those things. This is one of the reasons I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
But it's so horrible, and people don't realize that these are also things that happen when something like that goes wrong. It is not just a little mistake; it's something that really impacts someone's life and can have devastating effects. And
Yes.
people often like to swipe things like that under the rug by means of, oh, we have better things to worry about. But when you haven't dealt with the consequences of something like that, you don't know what the battle is about.
No.
And then I can be really stern and straight and say, well, sit back in your corner. This isn't about you. Go fight your own battle.
Yes. I think that's a perfect thing to say.
Yeah.
At the end of this conversation,
I think we covered so many things. And I want to thank you very much for joining me in conversation, for joining me in this project.
It was my pleasure.
I have a small token of my appreciation.
Oh no, you didn't.
That's
not why I did
a small
it.
thing. It's a pin, a unicorn
It's
pin.
a unicorn. Oh, I have to watch over this because I know this will get stolen. Because you're the brother of my daughter.
I am.
Pin it on. Because now I finally have something to show. I'm part of the Rainbow family.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And now, as for you, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This was already the 3rd episode of We Don't Talk About.
Our conversations premiere every Tuesday during Pride Month at 8 p.m. Central European Time with a live chat. So make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and let's talk.
But those are things that like automatically change in the system. System. Bye.